And most of all, we want to say hello. We've been joined now by Brigadier retired Mark Phillips, and he is the prime ministerial candidate for the People's Progressive Party, which has been tipped, which according to the tabulation figures of the recount, which was completed on Sunday, the People's Progressive Party has taken the presidency based on the recount, and we are waiting within a few days. We have until Tuesday for the declarations to be made. But in the meantime, many questions. So we want to say a good day. Welcome, Brigadier retired Mark Phillips. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me in the program. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very clearly.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear you, and we see the blind behind you. I like the pink blind or the peach blind or whatever it is. So good day to you.
Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay, sir. And so Dr. Yog Mahadeo and myself are here, and we, of course, are very interested. We know that if all goes well, according to what we've seen here, based on the tabulation, we're not going to jump and say President here for an alley, but we have some questions for you, of course, sir. You are the prime ministerial candidate, and you're tipped to become the next prime minister of Guyana. So I want to get straight down and ask you, sir, has Guyana won in this entire fiasco that we would have seen playing out the last couple of months?
Well, yes, I would say thank you for having me on the program, and thank you for also having me accompanied by Dr. Yog Mahadeo on the program. And hello to our viewers. I think Guyana's won, but we won after a long struggle for democracy in Guyana. At the end of the day, the people of Guyana are victorious because democracy will once again prevail in Guyana.
So I want to ask you, Brigadier, the first 100 days, and we get straight into it. Are you ready to start working? You're going to be the second most powerful man in this country. Are you ready to start working? Because you are headed, as Yog would have said a few moments back, into a country which there's very little left in the kitty jar. That's one. And I could say, based on what we've been seeing, that we are a heavily divided country at the moment, politically.
Well, we have been ready to start working since around the 3rd or the 4th or maybe the 5th of March. What has happened is the delay in announcing this whole results had to put our plans for the development of Guyana and everything that we had for the first 100 days on hold. So we remain ready to start our development plans and to work in the interest of all Guyanese. Our plan is to take all Guyanese on board with our development process. It's not important who you voted for. Our government will be a government for all Guyanese. However, while the figures from the recount has shown us to be victorious, we will await the outcome of the work of the Guyana Elections Commission. As you know, they have to put together the reports. Who has to put together his report? He has to present it to the commissioners. The commissioners have to deliberate, and then the commissioners will make a decision, and that decision will be announced to all Guyanese. They have to prepare and have their report ready by the 13th of June, and the commission has until the 16th of June, right? So the 16th or before to declare the results. So while we are aware of what transpired with regards to the recount, we will abide by the rules and we will await the final work and the final decision of GICA.
And so I thank you for that. The first 100 days, what are some of the biggest hurdles or the biggest problems that's facing the people of Guyana that you and President Irfan President-elect Irfan Ali intend to tackle?
Well, we have to form the government. We have the ongoing COVID pandemic. That is a priority. And what we will have to do there is to ensure that we put together a task force, unlike the present task force, a task force filled with a lot of technical people, you know, people who are well qualified and well experienced in the area of public health management, so that we can get on top of this pandemic. We could curb the spread of this pandemic in Guyana and, you know, ensure people who need treatment, you know, receive the treatment. Attendant to the pandemic, you know, we have to look at issues pertaining to poverty. You know, a lot of people are not working because of this pandemic, because only essential services are allowed to work, and they have day laborers who depend on whatever they earn a day to feed their families. And we have to go into overdrive with ensuring that we have, you know, like whatever assistance in terms of food, you know, and other forms of assistance to people who are out there. Be proud people who have been working hard, and suddenly with this pandemic, they've now fall into a category of needy people that needs assistance. We have to work with the business community. What are some of the, you know, the tax breaks or some of the measures that I could implement to help the business community to remain viable during this time? Because, you know, it's the pandemic and it has an economic dimension. It's not only a health dimension, there's an economic dimension to it. So we have to work with all the stakeholders in Guyana.
Thank you very much for that. Yog, over to you.
Thank you. Welcome once again. As you know, sir, going into government, one of the primary concerns for Guyanese over the past 54 years would have been accountability of a government in office. What is Brigadier Mark Phillips' position on corruption, and what are you going to do to stand up against any form of potential of corruption, whether it's within your government or outside of your government?
Well, during my initial interviews when I accepted to run on the PPP Civic slate, I was clear that I have a zero tolerance for corruption. I will be working with the leadership of the PPPC to fight corruption in all forms in Guyana, especially in the areas of governance. We have to fight corruption. Corruption has been there before us, and you know, corruption is likely to be there after us. What is important is that we devise and implement an anti-corruption policy from day one.
Right.
If you're going to fight corruption, it's all about leadership. The leaders themselves have to lead in a manner that displays to the wider Guyanese community that we are not corrupt. And therefore, everybody who wants to be on board with us must put their houses in order. So from the top, we are committed to leadership that is anti-corruption in its approach.
Now, Brigadier, as you know, Guyana has a lot of problems. The most dangerous one is obviously our intolerance for each other's race. There have been very few persons that in society that has been openly calling people out for their racist views. Sir, you are heading into the formation of a government on a slate, with a slate on which you are the second person in charge. Your party has been deemed to be pro-Indo-Guyanese. I'm looking at you, I can't see I can't see any signs. I'm sorry to put it like that, but sometimes we get these ridiculous positions in there. what is Brigadier Mark Phillips' response to your position being a token position, being just there because of your race, sir?
Well, you know, as I responded to it on the campaign trail by one of the the leaders on the coalition side who actually used the term tokenism, and I asked him, are the non-Africans in the coalition, are they tokenism?
Absolutely correct.
The point I'm making is that the non-Africans, if you see the non-Africans in your team as not to be tokenism, therefore why I am tokenism? I'm not the only African in the PPC lineup. There are many other Africans. And the reality of politics in Guyana is that, I mean, you know the stats. About almost 40% of the population of Guyana are Indo-Guyanese. And just about, or just under 30% are African Guyanese. And if all the Indo-Guyanese voted for the PPPC and all the Africans voted for the coalition or the PNC, none of them can achieve 50% plus the votes to win the election. The reality is that while the parties have their support from a particular race, all the parties, including the PNC, have tremendous, substantial support, from all Guyanese society, whether it's Amerindians, whether it's the mixed race. So race is just one aspect or one small part, perhaps important part of this whole thing. But there are other reasons why people vote for the PPP. There are other reasons why people will vote for the coalition or for the PNC. The reality is the PPP Civic of 2020 went into the elections with a team, with a slate that is multiracial. We went into this election with a message to all Guyanese. All Guyanese must put their shoulders to the wheel and develop Guyana. And, you know, the fact that we are victorious and just awaiting the announcement of the declaration, we are ready to work races, all supporters, whether you supported the PPPC or not. So race is not the big issue for us. We want to take this opportunity once and for all to move Guyana forward. Time to move on. Time to move on as Guyanese.
So Brigadier, my last question to you, and just before I say that, let me say this, that I'm also looking forward to invite yourself and Mr. President-elect Irfan Ali to room 592, because I really have some very serious questions on behalf of the viewers and listeners that we need to ask of you guys, including dimensions of loyalty, dimensions of race, dimensions of impropriety, financial impropriety, and all of that. I would really love to have you guys on in room 592. Pick your night and let's bring it on. But here is my last question to you, sir. What is Mr. Brigadier Mark Phillips now saying, or what would you say to all of the APNU AFC supporters that are still being convinced that the PPP has rigged these elections, that they have won these elections? What will you say to them as a reconciliatory message? Because there is a fear, Brigadier, that if the PPP gets into government, it means they are losers, permanent losers, and people can't bear that. Let me hear your reconciliatory message to them, sir.
Well, the reality is that they've lost the election. And as I said just now, with the election now decided as to who are the winner and who are the losers, We have won the election, and we're saying to all Guyanese, it's time to move on. We have national programs that we want to implement for all Guyanese. We need all the skills in Guyana and in the diaspora to help us to develop this country. There's no use we have a resource or we have resources, and if you have oil now, and the revenue will come from oil, and we are divided. We cannot have the oil and remain divided. We have to have the revenue from oil, and likewise with the revenues from the other resources of this country, we have to utilize it for all guys. And that is what the PPP 2020 is about. Developmental programs for all Guyanese, and whether you voted for the APNU AFC, we want you on board with us. We are not into witch hunting. That is not our deal. We want to start the ball rolling for the development of Guyana. A lot of things occurred during this election and of recent during the recount that is quite disappointing to us. So from someone like me who came from the discipline services, and when you're gonna hear senior leadership from the coalition talks about, the votes for the discipline services were not counted. All these things were aimed at separating us. We're saying now, let's put aside that, right? Let's move on, right? We are waiting on GCOM to officially announce, officially declare the winner. And what we are doing actually right now in the PPPC, we are brainstorming, right? Our first 100 days. That's what we are doing. Because as I said before, we were ready since early March and everything had to be delayed because, you're aware of why it was delayed. And the recount is over now, 33 days of recounting the ballots. Every ballot casted in that election was recounted. And I think all of us now should reach to the point where we must stop the propaganda, stop the lies. The important thing is every ballot was counted, and we have the statements of recount, and we must utilize the statements of recount with the work of GCOM, and let us move on and develop this country.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Leonard. I knew I said that was my last question, but I actually have one follow-up.
You always do that to me, but go ahead.
Yeah, Brigadier, as a former Army man, say a few words to your colleague, to the former Army Brigadier, to Mr. David Granger. What would you say as an Army man to an Army man?
Well, as an Army man to an Army man, we all took an oath to defend Guyana. And if you're defending Guyana, you have to defend democracy in Guyana. David Granger became not only Brigadier Granger in the Army, but he subsequently in 2015 became President Granger. And as President Granger, he is the foremost authority in the defense of Guyana and in the defense of democracy in Guyana. Okay? And as he said, he's awaiting the declaration of GCOM. I would want to hold him to that, to await the declaration of GCOM. We all aware of the results of the recount, although it's unofficial, he's aware too. And let us await the declaration of GCOM. And I want to believe that Mr. Granger will uphold the rule of law, finally, and respect the will of the people. Because to do otherwise is not to defend Guyana, not to defend the sovereignty of Guyana, not to defend democracy in Guyana.
Absolutely, dear. And thank you very much, dear. If you're now joining us, Elections COVID-19 Watch, and we're here with Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips, Prime Ministerial Candidate of the People's Progressive Party Civic. Sir, I want to ask you, we have a court case in the international courts at the moment in The Hague. We also have our border, the issue with Venezuela and they coming into Guyana. I want to ask you, as second in command in a PPPC government, is it the intention for the PPPC to continue that court case, or they would prefer to have bilateral talks with Venezuela?
No, no, no. The, anything pertaining to the sovereignty, pertaining to security and defense of Guyana is deemed a bipartisan issue. It's so respected as a bipartisan issue. The PPPC is fully on board and fully in support of the continuation of the case before the International Court. And what is important for us is that, as Sir Sridhar Rampal said, we have this case coming up and we cannot appear to be divided as we seek to have a final, judgment on this case pertaining to Guyana sovereignty. So it's very important that we remain united, and the PPPC will continue to support the case as it was placed before the court. Yes, we will have a change of government, and hopefully before the 30th of June, right, the next hearing on the 30th of June, we'll have a president, but we'll continue because it's a case that has a lot of importance to the sovereignty of Guyana, and we will not violate or negatively affect the sovereignty of Guyana with our policies. That has been the history of Guyana.
And as a former army
whichever
chief,
parties in opposition has always been supportive of the party government.
my apologies there. As a former army chief, also, would you be playing a role in crime fighting in Guyana? Would you be lending your expertise to that?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm the Prime Minister. I expect to have a ministerial portfolio in addition to being Prime Minister. We haven't decided that as yet, but wherever I'm serving, the fact that I have 36 years of service in the defense and security of Guyana, I will be contributing to the PPPC's government policies and programs related to security and defense of Guyana.
Everybody has a pet project, something that they want to do, a legacy that they would like to leave. What is it that Mark Phillips would want to do for the people of Guyana?
Well, poverty alleviation, very important for me. I would like to see extensive programs pertaining to housing and feeding of Guyanese, creation of employment for young Guyanese. Those are important for me. Education. So every policy that is linked to poverty alleviation, I would consider part of my pet projects for Guyana.
So I want to bring you to the issue of COVID-19, and there's this very big controversial issue now of children going back to school, writing the exams next month. Do you have any thoughts as to that? If you were in government, would you have recommended children returning to school at this point in time?
Well, I think the Ministry of Education perhaps, should take a second look at this because, in many other countries, they're finding alternative means of assessing students because, the fact that you're putting the children back in school, are they going to conform to social distancing? We have adults who have difficulties conforming to social distance. Are we going to able to have the students conform to social distancing? And what are the other measures, the sanitation and, sanitary measures that are necessary, hand washing, and wearing a mask, all these measures must be put in place before we think about the students getting back to school. How is children going to school? Are they going to be traveling in public transport? Obviously. Are we satisfied that people are practicing social distance and all the health protocols in the public transport that we have right now? And then we're going to have the children traveling in those same public transport. You know, these are all things that I think the Ministry of Education should really think through properly before, you know, because, you know, I mean, unless you satisfy the parents that you really have all these systems in place, many of the children will not be allowed by the parents to go to school. I'm not here to tell parents not to send the children to school, but I'm just saying, as a Guyanese, and once you have children around you, the reality is that you have a concern. Did the Ministry of Education satisfy the concern of the parents? Based on what I'm reading in the newspaper, and even based on the action of the Guyana Teachers Union, it appears that there are still some gray areas that needs to be sorted out before children are allowed to go back to school. So perhaps the Ministry of Education needs to, again, if they haven't done it before, if they have done it before, again, sit with the Teachers Union. Start with the Teachers Union. Start with the Parent Teachers Association, and come up with a plan that is, you know, satisfies all stakeholders, that the children will be able to safely leave home, move in public transportation or private transportation, spend the time in school, and get back home safely without, you know, transmitting the disease among themselves or to the family when they get back home. Right? And as I said before, this is common entrance examination. We have in England where they have alternative measures to deal with students who had to write A-level exam. So why can't we do some brainstorming and come up with measures that can satisfy the requirement of placement of students in school for the grade 6 or grade 7 school year?
I do thank you for that.
So I'm saying there's some more work to be done there.
I thank you for that. Brigadier retired Mark Phillips, the PPPC's prime ministerial candidate. Sir, leading up to the 2015, even 2011, they were the PPPC in administration. It was under pressure. People would have said they would have lost touch with the people. What assurances would Mark Phillips, as the second in command of a government that is going to come on board, what assurances could you give to the people of Guyana that this is a PPPC that is tight, that is going to be there for the people, and they are going to be listening?
You know, those sentiments were expressed by many on the campaign trail, you know, especially where we went into the remote areas of Guyana. And I wish to assure you that over the last 5 years, and I would not have been around with the PPPC over the last 5 years to see how they did it, but I am seeing the results of it as I was on the campaign trail with the PPPC. And I can tell you that the PPP has achieved what I will refer to as political reach in all areas of Guyana. All the remote villages, you know, we have been to all the remote villages, all the corners of Guyana. We have achieved political reach. We're connected to the people. And having connected to the people over the last 5 years, and especially during the time where we were campaigning and trying to convey and communicate our programs, it's just a matter of us building on that platform that is now there to deliver public goods, to deliver good governance to the people of Guyana. And as I said before, every village we went into, every village will be touched by the developmental programs of the PPPC. We will not discriminate. We put in this whole election scenario, and it's time to move on, time to develop Guyana.
Yes, I do
The
thank you there.
PPPC, as traditionally, are you there?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
PPPC has traditionally been a party that is linked to the people, a party that focuses on poverty alleviation, development of the people. And there's no reason for us to change that in 2020. What I can assure you is that it will be intensified, especially coming after the 5 years. And when we go into these areas, the people tell us, some of these people, they voted for the coalition. And, you go up the Borbis River, you go up the Upper Demerara River, and they tell you that, regional officials, central government officials came during the last campaign in 2015, and they haven't seen anybody until now when they were campaigning in the run-up to the 2020 elect. We will learn from that, and we will do better. I can assure you, I can assure all Guyanese that we have a team of young and not so young people, vibrant people, ready to work and ready to interact and learn and develop the people all over Guyana.
I thank you very much. All over Guyana. Yog, is there anything that you would want to ask any of the Brigadier?
Well, I don't want to go to Brigadier is an army man. I don't want to put on my gloves for him as yet, but I'm going to certainly prime up my hands because he's heading into office.
Yog, you can stay for the full hour. Yog, you can stay full hour, and we will still come on your program.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. But certainly PM elect, I'm looking forward to have this discussion with you and President Ali on the 592, specifically because there we assess things from a different perspective, because I really want to get into some discussions with you guys. Let the Guyanese people know your position on certain things. For example, Brigadier, one of the things that people must know is that based on my understanding, you can correct me now if I'm wrong, but the PPP in and of itself, as you are presently, represents not just a People's Progressive Party, because you are not a member of the PPP. You are the skill set that they're attracting from various components of the society. So that's some of the kind of discussions I want to get into.
Yeah, people who are willing to serve.
Correct.
We're into politics, but we're not politicians. We become politicians day by day, but our main purpose of being here with the PPPC, as you said, the civil component, is because we believe in Guyana and we believe we can make a difference in Guyana. Many of us may be retired like me, but then we want to continue serving in Guyana, especially in the area of policy making, policy implementation, and there's diverse of skills out there. Not only myself, but there are others like me out there who will be co-opted to serve to improve the Guyanese people.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you very much, to Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips, the Prime Ministerial candidate of the People's Progressive Party Civic. Sir, in closing, what would you say to the Guyanese people who've been beaten into submission and you're about to enter office maybe in a few weeks' time, and you want to give them some assurances? What would you say to the people of Guyana?
I want to say to the people of Guyana that you have been calm, you've been understanding, you've been supportive of the process so far, notwithstanding what we've been through, notwithstanding the propaganda. Continue to be calm. We have a few days more to go before the GCOM officially make their declaration. And after the declaration, as I said before, allow us to form a government that will govern for all the people of Guyana, and to get on board with us, because our policies are aimed at developing Guyana, and it is our intention that in 5 years' time, when we go back to the electorate, we could go back to the electorate and say, look, we have moved Guyana from where it was in 2020 to now a place where all of us, including you, who may not be our supporters, are proud of. So it's a Guyana that needs development, and a PPPC government that will soon be formed after the official declaration will be working with all Guyanese, regardless of race, regardless of political affiliation, to do one thing, one common thing: make Guyana a better place for all of us.
Thank you, sir. And let me just say this to you in closing. I'll read to you the words of Mr. Feroz Khan. As long as you pass through room 592, you have passed the test.
He did that? He said that to you?
Yeah.
I thought you made that up.
No, it's there. Look, it's in front of us. That's one of our viewers' comments, sir. So we certainly look forward to seeing you again.
So Brigadier retired Mark Phillips, I want to thank you very much, sir. Congratulations to your party on amassing that. Of course, we're not going to say Prime Minister, and we're not going to say President. We're going to wait until GCOM makes those declarations. We know there's some objections being raised in the other quarters, so let's see how that plays out. We're hoping that everything goes out and it pans out pretty well, and the people, like you say, remain calm and do what they're supposed to be doing, which is wait on GCOM. Thank you very much, dear Brigadier retired Mark Phillips. Have a pleasant rest of the day, and hello to your people.
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Dr. Yog. And thank you for the people out there who will be listening to us the last hour.
Thank you.